Welcome back, everyone. We are so excited to have Ilyse Hogue, president of NARAL Pro-Choice America. She's been president of NARAL since 2013, and under her direction and leadership, NARAL has done incredible coalition building with so many different groups and has really increased its focus on ballot measures. And I personally am so excited to be interviewing Ilyse. We met a few months ago at a creative brainstorm where she told me her vision for the future of NARAL, and I was so impressed. And out of that meeting came, I'm going to let you talk about it, Ilyse. What is the big exciting news that came from that meeting?
Well, are we talking about our partnership with 50/50 Day? Because that is the very exciting news of the day.
The partnership with 50/50 Day and the Times Square billboard.
The Times Square billboard. So coming out of that meeting, I was so impressed with Julie. We stayed in touch. We talked about everything we have in common in terms of our vision of gender equality. And then we have this fabulous opportunity to work together on a very visible display of our commitment to gender equality, which is now live in Times Square. It is a giant billboard, and it talks about all of the things that we can push for so that women get equal opportunity here at home in the United States of America. And it's a fantastic partnership for us. We're thrilled to be working with you guys. And we know that America has such a big footprint in the world, and that 50/50 Day is global. So we're pushing here so that we can continue to push globally.
And also I want to give a shout out to Refinery 29, who did incredible creative work on that. They were really about trying to disrupt the space in Times Square so that those graphics would really be eye-popping, and the whole team at Refinery 29 did an incredible creative work on that billboard. So tell me, Ilyse, in what way is gender equity really playing a part in NARAL's overall vision and mission with women in global health and with women's health?
NARAL is a almost 50-year-old organization, and I think, you know, what my team has worked really hard to do is sort of reframe the conversation in 21st century values. And we actually self-identify as a women's freedom, women's equality organization, and we know that you can't actually have women's equality without centralizing healthcare generally, and specifically reproductive health care, because the single biggest decision we will face as women that affects everything in our lives, economics, education, professional advancement, is how and with whom we choose to have a family. And so for us, our core mission about reproductive freedom, reproductive choices, reproductive health care is the nucleus of how we achieve gender equality in this country.
So you've done a lot of coalition building since coming on to NARAL. Can you talk a little bit about your strategy for really kind of raising so many voices, the movement building work you've done?
Well, I mean, I think that I come from a non-gender specific kind of political and social change organizing. So I have worked in the environmental movement, I have worked in the economic justice movement. And one of the things that I realized coming to NARAL is that even within those movements, we have a long way to go to understand the role that gender and then even race and gender together play in actually achieving the goals that we want to achieve. We know that women are change makers. We know that when we are empowered to make our own decisions, we become empowered in our daily lives and how we actually spend our time. And that is one of the best ways to advance our country, advance progress. And so part of our coalition building has actually been to work with non-gender specific organizations and work with them to realize how gender plays a role in everything that they're fighting for, elevating women's leadership, making sure that reproductive health care and gender equity are an explicit part of their program, not just an unspoken one. Because when it goes unspoken, women don't always hear themselves as part of the story. And knowing that we are part of the greater story of political change in this country is so critically important to getting to the 50/50 goals that we want.
So talk a little bit about that. How you see this kind of change, the changing face of the women's movement and the future of the women's movement. Where do you see it, where do you see it here and where do you see it going?
Well, so there are a bunch of things that we're keeping an eye on right now, but one that is completely indisputable is that women are the resistance in this country right now. Women are filing to run for office at unprecedented rates. We've had 11,000 women file to run for office just since this election. Women are the ones disproportionately pouring calls into Senate and House offices, showing up at town halls, speaking on the floor of state legislators. And one of the things that we know is that women know that our lives are defined by our reproductive rights, that until we are actually assured of the fundamental freedom to make our own decisions, everything else fades from view. And at the same time, we know that women's interests don't end there, right? That we bring our full selves to our passion. So we are not only reproductive rights advocates, but we're environmental advocates, we're leadership advocates, we're equity in the workplace advocates, we're economic justice advocates. And so when we actually think about how we're relating to our members, we invite them to bring their full selves to the conversation. We talk about some of the work that we did raising concerns about Jeff Sessions as Attorney General, and there were a lot of reasons to be concerned about Jeff Sessions, strictly within our mission statement, that he wouldn't enforce people who actually harass women walking into reproductive health clinics. But many of our members were saying, sure, I don't like that about him, it concerns me, but he also has been terrible on racial equality, and I care about that too. So I think that the way that the women's movement is going is, first of all, women know who they are. Our job is actually to create platforms and empower them to be who they are, and that we're not interested in being siloed into this issue or this issue, that we bring our best to bear when we bring our full selves to the conversation. And that's what NARAL is in the business of.
So Ilyse, this is 50-50 Day, and we are being inclusive. So what is the role for men in the future of this gender equity movement?
We love our male allies. We think they're tremendous, and I think it operates on a number of levels. One of our fastest growing movements is our Men for Choice movement, men who recognize the fundamental freedom enshrined in our constitutional rights to abortion and reproductive freedom, and they are being more and more outspoken. And then beyond that, I think that men are recognizing that their destinies are linked to our destinies. And so when we fight for things like paid family leave, we have more and more men saying, we don't want that to be maternal leave. We have an investment in raising our families too, and recognizing that most families are dependent on two incomes. So when women are held back, if you're in a straight relationship, then the whole family gets held back. So we're inviting more and more men into the equation to talk about how women's rights are human rights, how our destiny affects their destiny and our whole family's destiny. And we've been thrilled to see the response. I mean, there has just been an outpouring of self-identified feminist men who are really in this fight and really march and rally with us arm in arm to reach this goal of 50-50.
So Ilyse, how is access to birth control necessary for gender equality? It's a little surprising right now that this is coming on the table. And can you talk a little bit about what NARAL's doing to help with that fight?
Absolutely. We always say, and I think it's really important for everyone to recognize, that when you talk about people who are in positions to legislate, they're not really anti-abortion, because if they were, they would fight with us for access to contraception, to drive down unintended pregnancies, and common sense policies that actually support working moms. But they don't do any of that. In fact, when I was a teenager, I never could have thought that birth control was on the table. But people forget that it wasn't actually until the early 70s that unmarried women even had access to birth control, right? They were actually prohibited from having, I know, isn't that mind blowing?
It's like, it's so mind blowing, and then you forget it and then you find out again.
Yeah. And so, one of the things that we recognize that we're reliving now is that there is a subset of people in this country who are committed to a patriarchal structure that holds women back. And one of the best ways to hold us back is not to give us control over our own reproductive destiny. That when we don't have contraception, then we can't control spacing our families in a way that Melinda Gates talks about was really important, not just to her and her husband and their success, but that's why she fights for it all over the globe, that girls are forced to drop out of school, that they can't actually apply for jobs that would professionally advance them. And there is a reason that sort of coinciding of legal access to birth control with women achieving positions in the workplace that previously were unthought of and unheard of, those went together, right? Because when we can take care of the families we have, space out the children so that we know that we can actually achieve things, then not only do we advance, but our families advance, our businesses advance, our government advances. And so I think that there is a small people in this country who have a disproportionate amount of power that are really threatened by that. And therefore, they're bringing this question of access to birth control back on the table. But I think they're in for something, right? Because women are not interested in going back. Women know, and now particularly young women expect to be in control of their own lives and their own destinies. And so I think that they start that conversation at their own peril, and they will be drowned out by a chorus of voices who recognize the fundamental role that contraception plays in us living the lives that we choose to live.
So how is NARAL working with the legislature, the legislators, to make a difference, to actually pass it's not pass anything right now, but as it were, how is NARAL as a movement building organization working with legislatures, working with our Congress people to actually impact policy?
So I think it's really important to understand that there are still places, even in this country, where we can pass things. So, for example, we worked really hard in Nevada to move the legislature in pro-choice, women-friendly direction, and we won in Nevada. So in Nevada, we've worked with legislators to introduce a bill that would actually provide legal universal access to birth control, recognizing that that right is probably going to be repealed at the federal level. So you have a state that's committing to empowering women through contraception, and that can not only just be a benefit for Nevada women, but it actually can be a model for the rest of the country. And at the same time, we have one of our fabulous champions, one of the amazing women leaders in the Senate, Patty Murray from Washington State, who just introduced a bill that would ask Congress to actually cover birth control in the event, as we anticipate, that it will be repealed through the ACA, that benefit. And while she may not have the votes to actually win right now, she is catalyzing a really, really important conversation for this country. And she is going to get legislators on the record about where they stand. And then voters can make up their own mind, right, once their legislators are on the record. So we're proud to have played a leading role in working with Patty on that legislation. We're going to continue to force the legislators to answer this fundamental question of where they are on contraception and by proxy on gender equality and women having control of their own lives. And then we're going to lay out the legislators' record for voters to make up their own minds.
So back to gender equity, 50-50 day. What do you see? Where do you see the kind of the future of this, and maybe the sticking points that we need to get through, and how we can kind of achieve that future we're looking for?
Well, so I love 50-50 day. I think it is a fabulous starting point for the conversation of how we get equal representation across society, because all of the data shows, and you know this, particularly globally, that when we have equal representation, it's good for everyone, right? Even countries' GDP goes up when we have better access to women in power. So we're thrilled to be a part of it. We think it is a long-term effort. We have a ways to go, particularly in the United States, where women are drastically underrepresented in elected office. But I think some of the sticking points we're starting to see move, right? Women are not as likely to run for office. Well, since the election, we've had 11,000 women file to run for office. We have now come to a point in the conversation where more and more men are speaking up about the benefits of gender equity for everyone. And I think given that men are so much of the power structure, we need their voices in the mix if we're going to change things.
Absolutely.
I do think that, you know, we are seeing around the world that there are some extremists actually running and winning for office, and part of their agenda is to keep women in our place, and that is going to be a sticking point. But we got to play the long game. We got to keep
play the long
game. We got to keep winning elections at lower levels, and one day we will get there.
Hello.
Winning the long game is key. Ilyse, thank you so much. Tiffany,
I want to say hi. I'm so excited about our partnership and the Times Square billboard, and your work is so courageous. And we haven't met in person, but we're meeting kind of right now. But we love this partnership so much.
And we do too. And I have to say, it's a pleasure to meet you even virtually. And that lipstick, you're just killing it. I got to get myself some.
Silk Road for 50-50 day. I was going for a different look.
I love it. I love it. Well, we should tell all Refinery 29 people, all 50 day people, all NARAL people, if you're in New York, go to Times Square, take a picture of yourself in front of the fabulous billboard that Refinery 29 did for us, and tweet it out with hashtag getting to 50-50.
Yes, go team.
The billboard is up for the next 3 months. So you have 3 months to go to Times Square. Ilyse, do you have the corner that it's at?
Browdway and 43rd. I do know that.
Broadway and 43rd.
Thank you.
Can't miss it.
Take a selfie and hashtag NARAL, hashtag getting to 50-50, and we're all going to get there.
Okay, thank you so much. You were both great. I love listening to this.
Thank you.